So that is the aim of the free use. See Christ everywhere. The fixed use has as its aim, create silence. Søren Kierkegaard at the beginning of the 19th century said, if I were a doctor and were asked for my advice, I would say, create silence. And do we not need such a doctor today? But what do we mean by silence? Is silence merely a pause between words? Is silence negative, just an absence of speech? Surely, in the religious sense, silence means not emptiness but fullness, not absence but presence. Silence is a presence, at the heart of it is God. In the Psalms it is said, be still and know that I am God. The psalmist doesn't just say, be still, but he says, know that God is here. So, silence means God awareness, listening to God. One of my favorite programs when I was a university undergraduate, I suppose not known to most of you, was the comedy show on the radio known as The Goon Show. And at one point, Harry Seacombe, one of the characters, lifts the telephone receiver when it rings and he says, hello, hello, who's speaking? I can't hear you. Hello, who's speaking? And the voice at the other end says, you are speaking. Oh, he says, I thought the voice sounded familiar. And he puts the receiver down. Now, that is unfortunately what happens to us when we try to pray very often. We hear the sound of our own voice, but we find it much more difficult to listen to the wordless voice of God at the other end of the telephone. How are we to stop talking and start listening in our prayer? This is where the Jesus prayer can help us. It is a contemplative prayer, a prayer of listening. It is a prayer in words, but because the words are simple, frequently repeated, they reach out into the living silence of God. It's no use just saying to yourself, be silent, say nothing, listen to God. Because when we try to do that, the result usually is we just suffer from an endless sequence of wandering thoughts. Not necessarily bad thoughts, but just irrelevant and pointless. We can't, by a simple effort of will, turn off the internal television set. What we can do, through the Jesus prayer or some other similar prayer, is give to our ever-active mind a very simple task, so that we can be gathered together into our prayer and begin, like the old man in the story I told, to wait on God and to listen. Let me end with two words, one from a Russian saint of the 19th century, another from a Secretary General of the United Nations in the 20th century. St. Seraphim of Sarov says, acquire inner peace, and thousands round you will find salvation. The Jesus prayer is one way, not the only way, certainly. Many other ways exist, but it is one way of acquiring inner peace. It is not a selfish prayer. If we have spent perhaps only 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes, in some form of contemplative prayer like the Jesus prayer, then in all the other minutes and hours of the day, we shall be more creative, more compassionate, more in relationship with our fellow humans. My second text is from Dag Hammarskjöld, one-time Secretary of the United Nations. In his remarkable book, Markings, he says, understand through the stillness, act out of the stillness, conquer in the stillness. If I have no stillness within myself, my words will be empty and superficial, and my action will be ineffective. But if through the Jesus prayer I have acquired a dimension of silence, if I am in relationship with the stillness of my own inner self, then by God's grace my words will be words of fire, and my actions will heal and bring light. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on us. Thank you.